How's it going, everybody? Andy McCullough from the Kansas City Star here with Blair Kerkhoff for the latest edition of the Star's Sports Podcast. Blair, we just saw the most boring comeback victory since the last boring comeback victory the Royals authored. We were joking about this earlier, just sort of how how they've made the improbable look routine so often, and I'm just curious what you took away from this game, the 6-3 victory over the Blue Jays to go up 2-0 heading into Toronto in the ALCS.
Do teams do this regularly? I mean, is this a normal thing, what we're seeing down, in Game 4 in the ALDS in the 8th inning to come back and win, down 3 heading into the 7th inning today and come back and win? Those are somebody had an interesting tweet, said that today's comeback wasn't even their best one of the week. It's really is something to watch, and it I don't want to call it routine because these things aren't really routine, except when they happen over and over again. I get a sense that there is something about being confident and feeling good about yourself and not believing that there's a situation that can't be overcome. You wrote about it. You wrote the great story a month or so ago about what the wild card game meant to the Royals and to the organization. And it seems like whenever they have a comeback like this, someone will reference that. Someone in the clubhouse. Mm-hmm. I heard it a couple times again today, but they really have an incredible ability to not think that they're going to lose a game in the 7th, 8th inning when they're down.
Well, when you see, and I was thinking out loud here, I remember talking to players in this spring about Game 7 of the World Series, and they were still very surprised they did not win that game. And you think sometimes maybe that's sour grapes or, it's just rhetoric or whatever, but then you see the way they've played when they've trailed so often already in this postseason. They really do believe that if they get any sort of opportunity, they're going to win. And, so today's Saturday?
Saturday.
Monday was Game 4 of the ALDS?
Yeah. That's right, yeah.
God, this has been like the longest week of my life. Oh, my God. That's crazy, isn't it? That was Monday?
It was Monday.
And then Wednesday was the Cueto? Wow. I mean, what a week. What a week for the Kansas City Royals.
Phenomenal. It's a phenomenal week for the Royals. And they're it came on the heels of the disappointing loss in Game 3 of the ALDS. Yeah. And who'd have thought after as we entered the 8th inning on down in Houston in Game 4 that the whole everything would turn, and it has turned from that position from the 8th inning of Game 4 in the ALDS. We fast forward to today, and they're 2 games up on the Toronto Blue Jays, heading to Toronto and needing to win 2 more to get back to the World Series. The belief obviously is there, but what also is there, let's just take the middle relievers today. You've got Dan Duffy and Luke Hochevar, who came in and did, I thought, a terrific job. Look at who those guys are. I mean, Danny Duffy's, they're both starters, former starters in this team. Yep. These are guys that they weren't scrap heap guys. They're not guys that you're throwing in the middle of of your bullpen. These are quality arms that other teams don't have. Yeah. And there are a lot of guys on this roster that other teams don't have.
Yeah, well, so I've been talking with, I'm friends with a lot of folks from New York, because I was there for a while, and they kind of wonder, like, how do you assemble this team? And they talked about, it's great what they've done on the margins, but the thing is, like, when you look at this roster assembly, they have 9 good players who start, the fan base is, maybe at some point they'll give Alex Rios a break. He had another big hit today. Yep. But, they have, if Alex Rios is your number 9 player, like, you've got a pretty good team, I would say. So they have 9 good players, and when you have 9 good players, who you don't need to platoon for any of them, they all play every day. Most of them don't have huge splits versus lefties or righties. You can fill out the margins of the roster with a lot of different things, and so the bench has a ton of speed, and they're able to focus their resources on other things like bringing back a Luke Hochever, like spending the money on a Chris Young or a Chris Medlin, which afforded them the opportunity to send Duffy Duffy into relief, where they're almost certainly gonna bring Duffy back as a starter next year. But you watch him in relief, and you're like, yeah, this plays.
Yeah.
He lets it eat, and he can get 98, and it's pretty devastating. So we talked about this in the video, how the Royals seem to do so much damage in those vulnerable moments when a starter is getting tired, middle relief comes in, and those sort of in that vortex before when the starter is no longer at the height of his powers, and the 8th inning guy or the 9th inning guy don't come in. And what the Royals do is, obviously there's a drop off from Wade Davis to Danny Duffy. I'd be curious to see what that actual drop off would be over the course of a full season. What Danny Duffy could do throwing 60 innings or something.
Well,
like
right.
that. And when you have that weapon, it just makes it. You get more cracks, because you get a crack at David Price with the score 3-0 instead of the score being 6-0, and you get so you have opportunities to make these comebacks look simple.
Well, and the distance between a Wade Davis and a Danny Duffy is it's not, to me, it's not a great distance,
right?
And nobody else has that type of distance.
Right.
Nobody has that type of distance, which is to say, Wade Davis is the best at what he does, and Danny Duffy, for a 7th inning pitcher as he was today, or a 6th or middle reliever, is tremendous. It just can be tremendous.
Right.
One thing I saw, I noticed about common to both games, the games 1 and 2 here. I'm looking at the box score, and on the first night, Escobar had 2 hits, and everybody else in the lineup had 1. Mm-hmm. Today, Moose, which we should talk about him a little bit too, and get his swing back, had 2 hits. Everybody else had 1. Mm-hmm. Everybody up and down the lineup contributes, and it's usually bunched together in a way that produces runs, and that's what's happened. But you don't have a guy going 4 for 4,
right.
3 for 5.
Right.
Nobody's carrying this team.
Right. Well,
everybody's doing something.
Someone compared it to. Someone said it was kind of like the Orioles model from the past few years, and it's really and it sounds stupid, but it's 9 good players. Get 9 good players, and they don't. The closest thing they have to a superstar is Lorenzo Cain, but Lorenzo Cain is a superstar in the fact that he's a good hitter who plays a great center field, and so we kind of have a better idea what the value of that is. But they don't have a 35 home run guy. They don't have a 150 RBI guy. They don't have a guy who's going to bat 330. They don't have one guy in the lineup who can kill you, but they have a lot of guys who can hurt you. And when they get going, you see how deep that lineup is. And all of a sudden, David Price has had to go through 6 at-bats of hard road, and there's a couple guys on base, and Alex Gordon is up batting 8th.
Batting 8th.
You could argue when Alex Gordon went down this year in July, he was the best player on the Royals. And so you look at that, and when Gordon's right, and when Moustakas is starting to get his swing back, it's just a deep team. It's a deep team of good players, and not many teams have that anymore.
3 great swings by left-handed hitters agaga Price.
Against David Price.
Against
Price.
Really good. Hosmer, Moustakas, and Gordon, each with the good swings. What about Moose? He'd really been scuffling, I think, in Houston, and got a base hit, a big hit yesterday in Game 1, and then he just came up bases tonight, and if he's got. If he returns to the Moustakas that we saw in the postseason last year, maybe the Royals will have that that guy who can just carry a team for a few games.
Yeah, he's got that ability. He's got that ability for sure. He was their best player for the first month, and maybe for the first 2 months. I mean, his emergence was really, really important in that it allowed him to go through struggles midway through the year, because he's never going to be a perfect hitter. He's got a lot of holes, and all that sort of things. But he was able to sort of deal with the valleys because the peak was so high that he could deal with the valley and just remain a productive player. And so there's not a ton of pressure on him to be anything more than just a good player. He bats 6th. They're not asking him to hit, home runs in the 3-hole. They're not asking him to get on base all the time in the 2-hole. He comes up in RBI spots a lot. And he's able to put good swings together. His approach, he's going to go through slumps, and he's a guy who's probably going to bat closer to 200 at best in the postseason because he's going to be facing good pitching a lot. And he's a guy who does, he feasts more on mediocre and bad pitching than he does on good pitching. But he's capable of hitting home runs. His defense is fantastic. And, up against David Price today in a really big spot, he comes through, pulls a single into right.
I expect this to change when the series shifts to Toronto. But it's been 2 games here in Kansas City, no home runs for the Blue Jays. No home runs. They led the majors in home runs. And it's not as if the Royals pitching held down Astros' power last week. Right. They were leaving the yard pretty frequently, but Toronto swung the bat better today for sure.
A little bit,
but still can't get the ball out of the yard.
Yeah, I mean the Blue Jays are a little more wounded, I think, than anyone suspected. Tulowitzki had some good swings today, but he definitely is a compromised version of himself. Encarnacion had some good swings today as well, but his hand is busted up. We talked about this earlier. It would be nice if Bautista showed up. He's
series has started.
Yeah, I mean we're 2 games in. But Donaldson and Bautista have had good at bats. That's 100% true. They have made Ventura work. They made Volquez really work the other night. But again, it's if you can keep those guys in the yard, and Encarnacion, you can probably kind of take him slightly off the table just because of how his hand is obviously hurting him. If you can keep Donaldson and Bautista in the yard, then you can get the other guys out. And so they're good. It'll be different in Rogers Center. I would imagine there'll be a couple, pinball game types up there. But that's why you get home field advantage.
Exactly.
That's why home field advantage does matter, despite what everyone argued back and forth, and it just when there's 2 teams whose playing styles so starkly contrast based on their park, it's important. There were balls that I'm sure would have gone out. If they got caught in that jet stream, at Rogers Center, they got knocked down by the cold and the air and the big park here. So that's why home field advantage matters.
Right. Okay, so it does. The scene shifts to Toronto for Game 3, and Johnny Cueto coming off the best start, certainly of his postseason career, his Royals tenure, and I would imagine he would say one of the best starts of his life.
Yeah.
When he retired the final 19 batters he faced in the. It was a great note that he only pitched from the stretch.
Yeah, one pitch
from the stretch.
To Valbuena, right?
Right, to the because he had given up a hit on the previous batter. So we get Cueto in Game 3, and there's no way he matches that performance.
No, I don't think so. I mean, that'll be tough. It'll be tough, especially in Rogers Center. You would imagine the Blue Jays will take some smelling salts or something to wake up and actually, show up. They played all right today. Game 1,
they didn't show up.
That was not a good performance.
No, I wondered if they
Toronto
travel or something. It just wasn't.
You know what? And this is. It doesn't. There's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse to come out as flat as they did.
They really did. 1. I mean, they were unbelievably flat. I was startled by that.
Yeah.
As good as Volquez was.
Volquez was good, but there were
great movement on his.
There were fastballs to hit in the 6th inning that could have been hit a long. We'll put it this way. Given the opportunities that they had in the 6th inning, other teams, perhaps the one in the other dugout, you saw what they do in high leverage spots. I mean, this is where the Astros, the Astros for all their flaws, in big spots in games 1 and Game 3, and in Game 4. I mean, they had some big at bats in Game 4 as well. In those big spots, they came through. They got hits, they got singles with runners in scoring position. They drove men in. The Blue Jays have not done that yet. Whether that's because of the injuries, whether because of the approach, whether that's because how the Royals are pitching him. So, anyway, it's all a long way of saying, Cueto's going to be in for a tough night. I mean, that's not an easy assignment going into that park. It's going to be very loud. He may be struck by cans of beer or something like that.
I fully expect that, by the way.
And everyone talks about how Philadelphia is whatever. You throw batteries at J.D. Drew one time.
says the suburban Philadelphia guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that'll be a good matchup. Marcus Stroman obviously has great stuff, and the Blue Jays kind of view him as their number one. You would think that maybe, that game tilts a little bit in Toronto's favor, but there's no, who knows? I mean, there's no way of knowing how it's going to go. I will say this. I mean, the Royals, for 5 days and nights with the Astros looked pretty much neck and neck, or at least for 4 days and nights.
That's a good, absolutely.
They looked pretty much neck and neck, and you could even make a strong case that the Astros outplayed them for the majority of that series. Through 18 innings here, there's no doubt who's the better team.
That's right. No, I agree 100%. I did think that with Price going through the lineup as easily as he did the first 2 times through, I thought, okay, this will be it's the Blue Jays' answer. They got jammed up them yesterday. They'll do it to the Royals today, right. And then the 7th inning happened, and this team just doesn't cease to amaze when they have a deficit, and it's an incredible quality to have, and it's become the norm, and that is it's a great place to be if you're one of the 40,000 people that show up at Kauffman Stadium for these playoff games.
Yeah. I mean, it's a credit to the organization. It's credit to the players. It's a credit to the players who have learned from their experiences over these past years, learned from a lot of years of losing. Learned from a lot of moments of coming up small in big spots. Especially last year. We talked about how Ned Yost liked to talk about how they struggled in front of big crowds. And
I remember that.
And now they play in front of a sellout pretty much every night. And it's really like, I know a lot of people like to say call it like bunching your luck, or just having the good fortune to get all your hits at the right time. But I think if it happens often enough in big spots like this, it is character. It is character. I really do believe that, and there's no way to quantify it. And you sound silly, and you sound something like a homer. Since none of the Royals even like me anymore, it's hard for me to be considered a homer. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. The Blue Jays have enough talent to answer back, at Rogers Center. But right now, I mean, you can't ask for much more than the Royals up 2-0 in the driver's seat going to Canada.
All right, well, I will see you in Toronto.
Yeah.
And you will see me in Toronto.
I will. Enjoy the Chiefs game tomorrow.
I will. Things are going well for the Chiefs, so that should be. We should continue to have fun covering the Chiefs. But the series continues in Toronto on Monday, and look, follow the coverage of the Royals and the Chiefs and all Kansas City sports in the Kansas City Star, online at kansascity.com. Thanks.
And the True Blue app.
True Blue app.